Hey everyone, welcome back to the Sword and Soul podcast. Today our topic, well, that was my dog. We're going to have those. Today our topic is help wanted, finding the courage and seeking support. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say this topic we kind of came up with because as a podcast, we're discussing mental health and purpose and how to better yourself. And it seems like a lot of men have a hard time seeking help or being vulnerable enough to ask somebody for whether their opinion or advice or life experience. So I really thought this was a good idea for this, Jacob.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that to be one of the overarching themes in the men I see. And even just in friends in general, that asking for help and just taking that facade and pulling it away for a second just to be vulnerable.
Yeah, vulnerability is definitely a weak point for many men, let alone masculine men. It's very easy for us just to bottle up everything inside, deal with it as a man, and usually we rather get it figured out or we implode.
Right. We don't want to seem weak, vulnerable, exposed. We want to be the rock and the foundation of our families, of our groups and our communities. And, just putting it out there that you need help or that you might be struggling, that's a big blow to your self-esteem, your ego. It can cause a lot of shame for you to deal with.
Yeah, and as a husband, it's really hard for you to admit that you might not be leading your wife in the right direction, or your family if you have kids, or even just yourself. It's very hard for us to take a step back and realize that we need to look within, ask for some help, and move forward.
Right. So one thing I want to talk about off the bat is just how difficult it is, but also that asking for help doesn't have to be a mental health thing. It can be a spiritual thing. It doesn't have to be to the extent of, I need to see a therapist. You can seek out friends, family, someone who's gone through the same things as you. Whoever's there as a support for you, you have to be willing to use them.
Yeah, and in my situation, I don't have a father I can reach out to asking for manly advice. I don't have a grandfather. My mom's gone, so I don't have a mother to get womanly or motherly advice from. So I had to find my community of people that I was able to reach out for.
Right.
And get solid biblical advice or just well approach. And church was one of the biggest ones for it. You've been a big help in it. Because, I'm as broken as any man there is. And I try to figure out day by day. And I have strong men around me that help me figure it out.
Right.
Dealing with the death of my mom, you said a lot in this podcast, is she was the person I went to when it came to somebody passing away. I don't have parents to reach out to with it. My brother was in a vulnerable state, so I couldn't reach out to him. And I had you and my wife. And it was very hard for me to open up my emotions and let my wife know that I was struggling. It was hard for me to open up to you and let you know that I was going through some stuff. I have a very hard cover, and I have to keep that persona with people that, hey, Matt's got it all figured out. He's moving forward. Everything's good.
Right. So do we want to move into sharing one of our personal stories, or is that the one you were?
That was my personal one that came to mind. The other one I thought really was, it's hard when you're new in your faith to put yourself around people that are very biblically sound.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you're not worthy enough to be around them. You don't have anything to offer to the conversation or to whatever's being discussed. And that's where I've really realized, like, the more I put myself around those people, the more I learned.
Yeah. And on the other end of that, if you're, years and decades into your faith and you've got this persona, you've got this community that you built around you and people know who you are and what you're about, it can be hard to actually admit you need help to these people because you've built this, this community, and to show them that you might need help, that you're weak, that you're struggling with things that, maybe you've counseled or helped others with. That can be also just as hard.
Yeah. And especially if it's a new group for you.
Right.
letting people that are new in your life know that you're just as broken as you really are. It really is a very humbling experience.
Yeah. For me, I mean, it's like I'm going through it now. It's, I really didn't have a lot of accountability or any push or reason to ask for help, seek help, try to fix myself and do better until I met my wife. And it's something I'm just at the beginning of. I mean, I'm still struggling with it every day. Um, and opening up and just being honest. It's just a shame of that is it's almost crippling in some situations. Like I just lose my train of thought. I just freeze up and it's like my mind's like, you need to talk about it. You need to say something and be open and honest. But my body is just in this freeze.
Yeah, it's when you get to a situation where you're truly uncomfortable and you have to take a step back, the easiest way is just panic and shut down.
Yeah,
And you just
absolutely.
it's kind of just like sit there and just like look around like what's going on around me? How did I get to this point?
Yeah. And it's important to stay grounded, use skills, for mindfulness, but that free that fight, flight, or freeze. And it's for me, it's flight and freeze for me.
Yeah, and as a therapist that you are, nobody really asks how you're doing.
Yeah.
When you are in a leadership role or just in a career, a lot of people that you surround yourself with are too busy pouring into others that they don't pour into themselves, and nobody will reach out and say, "Hey, Jacob, are you all right, man?
Yeah.
Is
I
there
mean,
something we can talk about?"
yes, some of my more empathic clients do ask, and it's kind of nice, to spend a few minutes and because, they honestly want to know. And I'm not opposed to sharing if it helps, us in session. And I don't share inappropriately. I don't share more
Mhm.
than is needed for me to get a point across to them or to help them. Um, but sometimes it takes me, it's a little bit of a shock when, they ask, hey, because I've got my mind, I'm ready to go and I've got plan and what we're going to talk about. And then, they throw a curveball and they're like, hey, how are you doing? And I'm like, whoa, well, let me take a second and think about that. Because I really wasn't focused on me, I was focused on you. And I think that highlights how a lot of us deal with everyday relationships. We're always focused on others, helping them, being them for them. And it's often at our detriment.
It almost makes me think about in your situation, like when you're in elementary school and you get a substitute teacher for the day, and it's awkward. And the teacher's really like, "All right, kids, open up your book. This is what we're going to discuss." And that the one student's like, "So what's your name again? How old are you? Where are you
Yeah.
from? Did you go to school here?" And it's part of it's like they genuinely care, but the other part is they're trying to take away from the situation that's they're being put in and putting it back on you.
Yeah. It reminds me when we had a thing in our class. I don't know if anybody else has done this, but when we had substitute teachers, we would always swap seats with a friend and we'd pretend to be that person for the hour. And it's like we kind of do that in our daily lives to protect ourselves sometimes, is pretending to be something that we're not. We mask up, we push it all aside, and we just, you know, bottle it up. And like you said, sometimes we just explode.
Yeah. It's the human nature is it's a vulnerable state. There's a lot of confidence that goes in your daily walk. Faith helps with it. But at the end of the day, a lot of us are just insecure in who we are because we're unsure of who we are.
Yeah. And it's like when you find out who you are and you've got your values set up, you're doing value aligned activities, it's like, and then you change. And it's like, you got to find out who you are again.
Yeah, it's part of, I mean, it's growing up,
Yep.
it's new relationships, new careers. If you're the same person today that you were 15 years ago, you really have to take a look at yourself and see where you're lacking growth.
Yeah.
Contentment is a very dangerous place.
Yep. That is where you will idly waste years of your life.
And time is one of the few things that we can't get back.
Exactly. So we shared a little bit about our struggles and in asking help. And that takes me into what I want to talk about next is, it's just the big elephant in the room is shame. And like that's really kind of the overarching theme of asking for help. You don't want to feel that shame because it's hurtful, and that shame leads to vulnerability. And it's just this overall idea that asking for help means that something's wrong with you, that you as a person you're failing. And I see a lot of clients who talk about, I should be able to handle this on my own. They get into this cognitive distortion of I should, and that puts so much undue pressure on us that it can be anxiety provoking. And if you don't meet that goal, whatever that should is, if you don't get to that can be very disrupting, and it can really do a lot of damage. So it's like getting away from those shoulds to I would like to is hard, but can be very helpful. And our culture, we often frame strength as self-sufficiency. And, to an extent, yeah, that's great. You need to be able to do things on your own. You need to be able to not rely on people for everything. You don't want to slip into that, codependency. But you also don't want to be so self-sufficient that you're not asking for help. And when we isolate ourselves, that's when the shame just thrives, because healing ultimately needs connection. And when we get into like the myth of self-reliance, especially in like our Western achievement-driven cultures, we're conditioned to believe that independence is the highest goal. I've done this, I have this, I've accomplished this. This is who I am and what I've done. But as human beings, we're relational by design. And it's, our nervous systems regulate best when we're in connection with others. And when you're in that like fight, flight, or freeze of asking for help and you just feel paralyzed in that freeze moment, and then you actually do ask for help, you do open up and you make that step, the release of anxiety, and it's just you did the hardest part. And that right there is very cathartic. And yeah, you've got a lot of work to do and there's a lot else to do, but just knowing that first step that you can take that and do that and ask for the help is huge.
Yeah, and you were talking about independence. As Americans, we're very prideful in our independence as people. Like, I don't need a man for this. I don't need a woman. I can do this on my own. I don't need help. Pride is a sin, and to take a step back and realize that your pride is going to be your downfall.
Yeah.
And that really comes into like the situation when you're dealing with anxiety. If you're going to get yourself so independent and so shut off to everyone around you because of your pride and your ego, and anxiety creeps in, there's a lot of relationships that you have to repair, not only with yourself, but everybody that you cut out along the way.
Right.
And then now you have the fear and of anxiety of, I have to talk to this person and fix the relationship that I tarnished.
Right. And it's this idea of like you're just talking about, there's a cost of not asking for help. And that cost, it keeps adding with interest. And if you get to a point where, it's early on in whatever issue you're dealing with, that cost is low. You haven't burned too many bridges. Maybe you haven't suffered from the anxiety, the dread, the shame, the isolation for very long. But as each day passes, that interest is building. That cost of not asking is adding up. And it's adding up in your personal life, social life, wherever that issue is. Every day you wait is a higher cost when you have to deal with it.
Yeah, it's compounding interest.
Right.
And not only is that one scenario that is affecting you compounding, all the little scenarios that are around it are also compounding.
right? And it's
Right.
like that, it just spills over into other aspects of your life. And you might be able to keep it contained, at work. But once we hit that emotional burnout, it's going to seep into family, friends, groups that you're involved in outside of work. And then, some people might notice it and ask, what's wrong? But is that the moment you're going to seek help, or are you going to let that interest compound even further?
Yeah, and with anxiety, if it starts to creep into your work life, your quality of work is going to get affected, and you're going to have a hard time showing up for work and giving it 100% because of your anxiety. And then
Mhm.
if your boss has a conversation with you about the work that you're not performing to the fullest expansion, or the fullest desire of your boss, now you've got that fear of anxiety
Right.
creeping into it. And you walk into work on Friday and you don't know if you're going to get fired because I've messed up the last 3 days and my boss is looking at me differently.
Right. It's all this, it just seeps into other areas and infects it. And now you've added another area where you should probably be asking for help, but you don't because of that shame, that guilt, and this idea that, I can handle this.
And like I said, it all comes back really to pride and not letting somebody know that you're going through something and letting them in and letting them help you.
Yeah. And it's, like we talked about, our society is set up in a way where when you ask for help, the general consensus is that it's a weakness, and that if you can't do it on your own, then you're less of a person. But really, it's a strength asking for help. And, if you've ever been in that position and you have to make that choice whether you're going to ask for help or not, ask yourself, do I need to be weak to ask for help, or do I need to be strong to ask for help? And it's clear you have to be strong. And it's shifting your mindset on that, and then also not caring what other people think, because ultimately, how does it affect their lives? I mean, if they're focused on you and thinking down on you for getting help, then that's on them.
Another thing too is, as we are all unique individuals, there's somebody else going through the same exact situation you are,
Yeah.
or they've already went through it, and they can show you the path that helped them get out of it, so you guys can both move forward and build that relationship, and you have an accountability partner and somebody you can rely on to if that situation arises again.
Yeah, and it's sometimes hard to find where your equilibrium is between independence, interdependence, and then codependence. If you're too far on independence, then you're living in isolation. And if you're too far on codependence, then you're not doing anything for yourself and you're relying on others to meet your emotional, physical needs. It's that sweet spot of interdependence, being able to do things on your own when it's needed, but also being able to ask for help in scenarios that, warrant it.
Did you have a list of people that are best to reach out to, or kind of like a checklist of how you should go about reaching out to certain people?
Yeah, for me, it's like when I start seeing somebody, my first thing I try to hone in on is who who's your support system, and then my wife, my friend, my family, and it's like, okay, of those people, who's the ones that you go to and tell them the stuff you don't want people to know, like the dark stuff, the stuff that has to deal with emotions. And sometimes they don't have an answer because they don't have anybody. But then, if they say, oh, my buddy so and so is who I called when I found out I was going through a divorce, or I found out my wife cheated on me, or I found out I lost my job. And it's like, okay, well, that's the support we're gonna focus on. So that's like first level um, support, because they're easily accessible. They already understand you as a person. They know what you've been through and what you can and can't handle. And that's kind of like the first stage. It's like, if you got somebody like that, let's start there. After that, who do you go to if you need help? Maybe your dad, somebody who's been through those experiences. If you don't have a dad, that that leader at church or somebody else that you can identify as non-judgmental and willing to pick up the phone no matter what. And then after that, if you've exhausted that, then there's different like online support, like suicide hotlines or free resources that you can text individuals if you're having trouble. There's your local ER or psychiatric centers if they have 24-hour assessment areas when maybe you don't have anybody else or you don't have resources. And maybe you're not to the point where you want to harm yourself or others, but you just need somebody to talk to and to get resources because they have those things. And
Yeah, and I know our local sheriff's department on their app, they even have their resource for the local people in our county
right,
for such things.
right. And also, like, I went from one extreme to another, but right in the middle is seeking support via like Psychology Today. There's you can put in your zip code and therapists will pop up in your area. You can peruse them, get an idea of what they sound like based on their profile, reach out to them. Almost everybody does a 15-minute consult. There's no obligation. You can chat for a little bit, see if it's the right fit. There's also community mental health centers if you don't have the means or insurance for private pay or outpatient. These are these are bigger institutions that usually um, service a county or several counties, and they have multiple levels of treatment, usually outpatient, partial, group therapy, intensive outpatient therapy, and just going there and saying, hey, I don't have any money. Do you guys have a sliding fee scale? Sometimes it could be free depending on your income. Um, but there's the resources there. Granted, some places it's slim to none, which is unfortunate because our society, doesn't put too much weight into mental health treatment. So if you're in a more rural area, you might have to look for your resources more online. A lot of therapists offer telehealth. So if you find one in your state, I have people I see that aren't even local. They're, they're more south, and they found me via Psychology Today, and we're a great fit because they didn't have anybody in their area, or they tried several people in the area, and they just couldn't connect with them. And that's also important. I like to tell people is if you don't feel like the fit is right, you need to ask to be referred out because we're ethically obligated to do that for you.
Yeah, you're doing a disservice by keeping somebody on board that is not a right fit.
Yeah. So if you're seeing somebody and it's just not working out, you don't like their style, you're not getting anywhere, don't just stop treatment. Address it in a session and say, hey, I think we aren't a good fit. And sometimes you can work it out if there's some misunderstanding or something. But then ultimately, it's their responsibility to give you referrals.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about like the pay because I know there's a lot of free resources and there's a lot of expensive resources, and
Right.
I know one free resource is your local church.
Yeah.
Time constraints might be there in the availability of a pastor or a counselor, but most of your local churches will have somebody on hand to counsel you.
Mm-hmm.
A caveat of that is if you're not a believer, it might not be a good fit for you, but they're going to come at you with scripture and the word and the truth, and they're going to tell you to pray on it and attend a church and build a community within the church. And I would look at that as a form of payment. And I know our church, we've got 3 biblical counselors on staff at all times. So I think if money is an issue for you, look into your local church. Even in the rural areas, usually there's at least 1 or 2 churches in your county.
Yeah. I mean, even if you're not religious, I mean, help is help.
Yeah.
And sometimes, unfortunately, you have to make do with what you have. Um, Also, asking your primary care doctor. They usually have resources. Um, there's lots of ways to look, um, but you do have to put the work in.
Yeah. And the person that is helping you, they can't help you until you're really ready to get help.
Absolutely.
You have to be willing to be vulnerable, share your moments with them, share what's going on. You can't go into a therapy session with the shutters on and expect to get better.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's like the one big step is just coming to the intake appointment. I mean, that's huge. And I like to,
Yeah.
I like to preface everything with, this is just an intake. I'm just going to gather a history. We're not going to do anything deep today. We're going to develop a plan and we're going to agree on a treatment plan. And if at any time we need to shift focus or make a change, something's not working, you need to speak up, let me know, because this is a collaborative experience. And a lot of people are put kind of back by that because they're used to therapists or other individuals, that they've sought support from, trying to be in a position of power and authority. And it's like, I'm just a regular person. I
Yeah.
forget crap all the time. Sometimes I forget modalities and exercise. And it's like, I'm just going to tell you, hey, I honestly can't remember um, this bit of information. I'm going to look it up and I'm going to message you. It's like, we're all human. And it's that realness is I'm not trying to be better than anybody else. And that's what people want. They just want somebody that's not gonna look down on them. And I've heard from countless people that, they felt looked down upon by their therapist. And it's like, well, that hurts when I hear that.
Yeah. And as somebody that I'm not a therapist by any means. I could see a situation where if I was to go into a situation and felt like I was being rather looked down on or judged,
Yeah.
it would definitely be a turnoff to that therapist. But I would also almost wonder too if that's not something internally with myself that I feel like I'm being judged, but I'm really just being listened to, and I'm not used to that.
Oh, absolutely. That could definitely be the issue. Um,
I know that's how
I
it is with my wife. I wasn't used to having somebody genuinely, just shut up and listen to me and truly listen to every word I said
yeah.
and then respond. It's like, are you even paying attention? Yeah, I was letting you get everything out that you needed to get out before I responded.
Yeah.
And that was something I had to adjust to because I wasn't used to that.
Yeah. I'm still working on that.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to touch on from your perspective?
Um, just from like, if you're in that stage where you need help, you are still afraid to ask for it, to seek it out, to search for it. If you're in that just initial stage and you're just not ready to make that step, take some time and just write down and name your needs. Just make a list of what you need help with. Get it on paper, put some distance from it, look at it, and then make a plan. And if you put spiritual help and you're not at a church, you don't have anybody in your life that, is religious, but that's something you need to work on. It's like, where do I start with that? Well, start by Googling,
Yeah.
start by looking up for resources. There are countless individuals who have podcasts, YouTube, Instagrams, who you can just listen to and there's no judgment. They don't know you're listening. They don't know you need your help. But that's a good small step to seeking help.
Yeah. And from the spiritual side of it, there is a million podcasts out there, us included, where there's just voices. And I'm not a pastor. I'm still new in my faith, as I like to say. It's been 5+ years, but at some point, there is a seed planted within your brain where you're like, I need spiritual help. Me as a fleshly body, I can't do it on my own. And I need God. I need a higher power, if you don't believe in God, to help me. And anybody that's going to come at you with the word of the Bible is a great place to start. Further into your journey, you're going to learn about discernment and about how you can pick out the people that really are speaking the truth and speaking the word, and the people that are pushing prosperity gospel. And by prosperity gospel, it's what can I do for me? What can God do for me? This is how God makes me feel. And in reality, God doesn't really care how we feel, but God can help us feel better. And when I started going to church with my wife, we found an amazing church. Worship was fog machines, lights, music, drums, people clapping, people yelling. And I realized that wasn't worship, that was a concert.
Yeah, I've been in that scenario before, and I was young. I was in my late teens, early 20s, and it was great then.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like, I see some of that stuff again, and it's, the mega church stuff or
Yeah.
stuff like that, and I'm like, I'm so off put by it. But then I have to be like, for some people, that's what it takes for them to get there and to get the word of God in their ears. And it's like, who am I to? I mean, it's not for me, but
Yeah,
who am I to judge that and to talk down on that if that's what somebody needs to get to church?
absolutely. And that's where my journey began. And it really does help. It plants a seed in you because then you get yourself around people that do love God and they're there to be better for God and not for themselves. And it plants a seed and it's a good starting point. And
Hmm.
that church, it served its purpose. It got me interested in the word. And I looked at my wife and I said, hey, I want to be a part of a community. I don't want to be a part of this church. And now we go to a church that is very biblically accurate. We share many scriptures in each message. There's no fancy lights. There's no fog machine. There's 3 to 5 people on stage singing. And that's because that's what I was looking for. It was less about the show and the entertainment and more about the word.
Right. And
And
that,
if you are starting your journey in Christ and with faith, there is no wrong way to get started.
yeah, and that's the same for mental health. Whatever it takes for you to make a small step is perfect. Whether it's starting to follow more um, like-minded and helpful Instagrams, YouTubes, watching some videos. I mean, you're just building up the courage, you're building up the skills, and you're really just learning what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And you also learn that by, if we're talking outpatient therapy, you might go through, several therapists before you find somebody that you click with. But it's not that you wasted your time. You've learned what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And each time you find that better fit, you're going to gain even more from it.
Yeah, and the exact same spectrum, like you were talking about, is the same with the church. It is a relationship. And it's the same as if you were courting or dating somebody. There's things that you do want out of that person. There's things that you don't want. And you're going to find the perfect fit for you if you do your due diligence, do your work, try a few different churches out, try a different therapist out. And guess what? It's perfectly fine for you to circle back to the second or third or even the first one that you tried. And it's like, this is what I was looking for.
Absolutely.
It might not have been day one, but now that I've put my toes in the water and I've seen what's out there, this is what is the best fit for me.
Exactly.
And to like touch on the mega church thing, I'm personally against the mega churches because I don't think that they are godly and they're not doing things for the right motive, which they might be, but from my scenario, I don't see it that way. It still plants the seed and it is going to get somebody started in their journey.
Yeah.
Biblically and in the Bible, Galatians 6:2 says, share each other's burdens and in this way obey the law of Christ. When you get that community at your church and people that you can pour into and they can pour into you, you can share your burdens with them. I've got a good group of men in my men's group I go to and the young adult ministry that Karen and I lead that we just pour into each other. A guy came to young adults last night, his first time coming to the ministry, and he essentially just put it all on me day one. And I'm sitting there listening to him, and I told Kara, I was like, that kid's me. It's
Yeah.
weird to sit back and listen to a 19-year-old kid with roughly the same exact life that I lived. And he found Christ at 19, and it took me in my 30s to get there.
Yeah.
And I had that moment. I was like, God put me here tonight for this one kid. And we're going to talk about it. We're going to build a relationship, and I'm going to give him as much help as I can. And if I'm not the right person, I've got 5 other pastors I can refer you to.
Hmm.
And it's that sense of community. We were not designed to be alone.
Right.
And we go all the way back to Genesis, and God created a woman to be a helper for Adam because he knew Adam could not be alone. And I try to visualize Adam being born of the earth, coming to, and have this vast world, and it's just you. How scary is that?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it feels when you do get yourself wrapped up in anxiety and depression, that it's you and nobody else around you, and you have to figure your life out.
Yeah. Sometimes the most freeing things are just finding out that somebody else deals with the same thing you do. And it's that right there's a sense of community. And you're like, oh, I'm not the only one going through this. And it's just this big weight off your shoulders.
It's very peaceful to find out
Yeah.
that you have people within even your neighborhood that are rather struggling with addiction, struggling with pornography, having marital issues. You're not alone in it.
Yeah.
And when you
Absolutely.
find people that will truly give you solid advice and not, oh, you don't need your wife, divorce her, that you don't need to put up with that. No, you should try to work things out. Yes, there are scenarios with abuse and verbal abuse and situations like that where you should absolutely get out. But if I was to go to my neighbor and say, you know what, I think I'm going to divorce Kara. She hasn't done the dishes in the last 6 weeks. I'm not meant to be in this type of marriage.
Yeah.
And if they told me, yeah, you're right, you should get out, that is not solid advice.
Right. Right.
And like I said, if you are in a verbal or domestic situation, seek safety, seek help, and get yourself out of that situation.
Yeah. And in closing, I just wanted to go over some practical tips for asking for help. First is just recognizing the signs that you need help. And if you're irritable, exhausted, overwhelmed, disconnected, that's kind of like your system just waving a flag like, hey, something's not right. And something's got to give before things get worse. And it's like our bodies know before our minds do that we need help. So doing body scans and being mindful and present and just knowing when something feels off, take a minute to to try to hunt that source down and see what's really bothering you and how you can go about starting it, because the first step in seeking help is knowing what you need help for. And then once you've decided what you need help for, now how do you ask? And simple direct language, I'm having a hard time, can I talk to you about it? um I mean, that's really it. And it's important to set boundaries, especially with men, because if you're talking to your husband, um, you have to let them know what kind of help you need, because men are fixers. And I learned this the hard way several times. My wife brings something up and I'm trying to fix it and solve it and be very practical and pragmatic. And she just wants somebody to listen to. And it's like, ask or tell, hey, I just need support. I need somebody to listen to. Or, hey, I need solutions. I need these problems solved, and I need your guidance and help on it. And pick your moment, because you don't want to wait for the crisis if you can help it. You want to head it off before it gets to that point, because obviously the quicker you deal with it, the less destructive it will be, and the easier it will be to manage those issues and symptoms.
Yeah, and with those two things, I really go back to what we discussed in a lot of the episodes is journal what you're going through every single day.
Yeah.
That way you're taking a daily inventory of what you're going through, what you're feeling, and that can really give you a green light early on about what's happening and why you feel the way you do. It's journaling is huge. I wish I could get back to journaling as much as I used to, because it really does give you an inside look at yourself and realize that there's more going on than just your feelings.
Yeah, because it's easy to ignore something and just doom scroll, because then you're not being present and being mindful of what your body or mind is trying to tell you at the time. And it's
Yeah,
like
and
we're
you
not
were
in
go
sorry,
ahead.
in this it's like in this day and age, there's no shortage of distractions.
There's an
And
abundance.
yeah, right, there's an abundance of distractions, which all that does is just foster the inability to really look and identify what's bothering you. Because you can get lost in a YouTube video, you can get lost in in your reels for 20 minutes, and you're not helping anything. You're
No,
just ignoring it.
you're pushing it till tomorrow.
Yeah. And then tomorrow is gonna get pushed to the next
That's
day.
that's when we get back to that compounding
Yep,
interest on it.
exactly.
From a biblical standpoint, I encourage everybody to pray and ask for God to show you resources, show you encouragement, help you look within and see what you're dealing with, and really just surrender your emotions to Christ and let Him show you what you need to work on. Discernment is a huge thing that I've learned through the years, that if my intuition and my heart's telling me that this is not a situation or something I should be putting myself in or praying for, God will reveal it very quickly. Two, with that, like, God isn't going to answer your prayers day one. It might take you a week, it might take you a month. And the more you pray and the more direct you are with your prayers, and you're not beating around the bush and you're really asking God just to intervene, it does help. With on top of prayers, like I said, get on Google and just type in churches near me and go talk to a pastor, see if he has resources for you or somebody that he can direct you to get you help or to give you solid advice or point you in the right direction. In reality, we talk about this in my young adults group. This is all of our first times living this life, and we have to give ourselves grace. Jacob's a therapist, and he's going to make mistakes. I'm a minister of my young adult ministry. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to give you solid advice 7 out of 10 times. Those other 3, I'm going to make a mistake, but I have to own up on with what I did wrong,
Right.
point you back in the right direction, course correct, and try to learn from my mistake. So have grace with yourself, have grace with the people around you, and just try opening up to somebody and asking them to help.
And I want to touch on prayer a little bit. For my clients who are religious and spiritual, um, it's almost like from day one, I give it as homework, because prayer is excellent in calming your parasympathetic nervous system, and it gets you into this rest and digest mode. So one, it can calm you down. Two, it can increase your mindfulness of your internal struggles, how to deal with them. And it can lead to grounding, put you back in the moment so you're not spiraling with your emotions. And it can also be great practice for therapy, because if you're talking about your problems and laying it all out in a non-judgmental way, I mean, that's excellent practice. If you're giving it to God, it might make it a little easier to then present it to a therapist, where you can get real-time practical assistance with that too.
Yeah, and I'm always going to say that the Bible is the greatest self-help book ever invented. If you have a smartphone, download the YouVersion app, and there is millions upon millions of Bible studies. You can type in what you're dealing with, and somebody way more knowledgeable than me has
Andy.
written it. They've got the Bible
Yeah.
verses you need. They have a devotion at the beginning of it. The devotion is going to ground you and set you in a situation to really open your heart up, open your eyes, listen, and digest it, as Jacob says. And it's for somebody that's new to faith or not of faith, to digest the word is a very foreign concept. But when you learn to digest the word and the word reads you, it is very calming.
Yeah, it's like you're touching on like self-help realm of things. And I really have like you have problems with mega churches. I have problems with the word self-help.
Yeah.
But
with God, it's not self-help.
right. But
You've got the
individual,
ultimate healer there with you.
right. they get individuals who focus on self-help and stuff, and it's like they think that's the solution and everything. No, it's a good starting point and it can solve some problems, but it leads into that isolationism that you can handle everything on your own. And some things absolutely you can. But then being able to realize, like, no, I need interdependence. I need that human interaction. I need assistance and guidance from somebody who is outside of an an objective third party who can and has my best interests at heart. And sometimes you got to be careful because not everybody's going to be that person for you. Not everybody
Yeah.
can be support and helpful. And some people will actively try to harm you and guide you in the wrong way. And that's something you also have to worry about.
Yeah, and I would also encourage you not to self-diagnose yourself.
Yeah. Stay off
It's
the internet.
yeah, stay off of Google.
Yeah.
Don't Google what's happening with me or why am I this way. You're going to get in a very bad spot.
Yeah. And it's like some individuals who have that propensity to just Google everything, you're going to find and fit a diagnosis to you almost every time. You're going to be like, oh yeah, that's me. That's me. And then you're going to have a Pokédex of diagnoses that you think fit you. And you're just going to spiral and it's not going to be helpful.
No, it's going to put you in a situation to where if you do seek help and they do not agree with your self-diagnosis, you're instantly going to feel like you're not heard.
Yeah. And it's another thing, like, I hate the current culture of diagnosing because, I mean, that could be a whole other podcast, but, I tell clients, like, yeah, I have to give you a diagnosis. I mean, one, insurance needs it.
Yeah.
Two, it can guide treatment, but it's like, I don't get hung up on it because it doesn't define you. And it's hard to pick one diagnosis or two because we're so complicated and things are so intertwined. It's like, just don't even try not to focus on it.
And as a professional, would you also say that their diagnosis is not permanent?
Absolutely.
And that's the beauty of it. Like what you're going
Right.
through is temporary.
Right.
What you're experiencing is temporary. It's just the season that you're currently in.
Right. It's like a roller coaster. There'll be good times, there'll be bad times. And if you've gotten help in the past and you know how to do it, hopefully the next time things get bad, you can head it off a little earlier and know, hey, I need to make an appointment with my therapist, because we need to have a couple sessions and I need to get back on track.
Yeah. So are we ready to wrap this up?
Yeah, I think so. We could go on for hours and hours and hours,
Yeah.
but
So from the spiritual perspective, I highly encourage you to seek out to pastors in your area, biblical counselors, even if they're not within the church. Pick up the Bible, start journaling, and start praying. It is very calming when you really just let out what you have inside and you're just talking to God about it because he is going to listen, and it helps just to get it off your chest.
yeah. And from a mental health standpoint, seek out the lowest hanging fruit as far as someone you can talk to and trust. Pick the person that you find would be the easiest to open up to, and then just build that muscle from there.
Yep. And once again, please seek help. You are surrounded by resources, and what you're going through is temporary. You're not alone in it. And even if you have to, last point of contact, reach out to the podcasts. Jacob can reach you in the right direction with somebody for mental health. I can help point you to a local church if need be. And just know that you're not alone.
And every podcast we do, there is a litany of resources in the show notes. All you got to do is scroll down. You don't even have to watch us every time. If you need and can't think of what to do, come to one of our pods, scroll down, and there's some resources there for you.
So from the Sword and Soul podcast, we thank you guys for tuning in. You can check us out on Spotify, YouTube, now on Twitch, Facebook, and Instagram. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. everyone, my name is Jacob. I'm a licensed therapist and co-host of the Sword and Soul podcast, where we explore mental health through a faith-based lens. This podcast offers spiritual encouragement and mental health education for informational purposes only. It's not a substitute for therapy or medical advice, and listening does not create a therapist-client relationship. If you are in crisis, please call 911 or present to your local emergency room. The full disclaimer and a list of mental health resources are available in the show notes. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.